that I can do. Today's topic is a topic that I want to give over, but I'm giving it over with tremendous fear and apprehension. I am going to make a link between the topic of reincarnation and the topic of why life is so filled with challenges. I would like to just start off with an introduction. When I first told my Rebbe, Reb Moshe Shapiro, that I wanted to give a class on reincarnation, he was very much against it. He said it tends to play with people's minds. He said it can only cause more harm than good. Just in general, Kabbalistic concepts he felt should not be taught, even though a lot of his teaching are based on Kabbalah ideas, but by the time it's given over to the student, it's already filtered down in a way that is easy to eat, easy to digest. But reincarnation is like it's in your face. You're dealing with all this crazy, spooky stuff. So he was against it. I argued with him, and I told him, first of all, I'm teaching Derech Hashem, and reincarnation is found in Sefer Derech Hashem. So it's part of what I'm teaching. Secondly, and I gave him over a bunch of reasons why I thought it was necessary, which I'm going to share with you at the end of this presentation. And one of those reasons was not what I'm going to teach you today. So I don't have my Rebbe's approval for what I'm about to teach. Not only that, I've given this class over twice before. The last time was this year. I teach in a group called Jewessence. Jewessence are young ladies who have gone through a lot of challenges in their lives. I gave over this class, and I saw the response was that most girls liked it, and some girls were very triggered by it in a negative way. So, so this gives me room for pause. You know, maybe I should not be talking about these things. So I want to say right up front, if you like this class, then good. If you do not like this class, I'm asking you for a huge favor. Mentally press delete, you know, whatever it is. Rivka Flick, give me the right word. Is it obliviate? Is that the right word? Is that the Harry Potter term? Obliviate. I want it to go completely out of your mind, that everything I told you in the last hour. If you do not like it, so I'm asking you to forget about it. If you do like it and it can give you some form of chizuk, then this class will have been worthwhile. And honestly, I feel the urge to give it over because deep down in my gut, I feel that this is MS. I feel that what I'm saying is true. Just to give you some context over here, I have in front of me a little toy called my WhatsApp. So I know I have WhatsApp on the screen as well, but this is the only thing I have. This thing never leaves this room except for when I go to Chutz La'aretz, because I don't want to walk around with WhatsApp. Every night, I spend approximately an hour answering questions and dealing with certain issues. And whenever you think that things are going to get a little easier, in general, they tend to get worse. The stories I hear from my students are horrific. For some reason, they don't reach out to me. They rarely reach out to me to tell them I'm having a nice day. If they're reaching out to me, it's because there's a crisis in their home. There's a crisis in shidduchim. Even worse is when there's a crisis after marriage, and people go through stuff. The shidduchim is one challenge, and medical issues is another challenge. Every so often, it's an impossibility for some couples to have children. I'm also dealing with kids off the derech, parents that have kids off the derech, whatever you want to call it, who are on the scenic route, as some of my friends call it. And then probably the most hardest for me to deal with in terms of an educator is abuse. Students of mine that go through abuse. So what happens when the following happens, which is what happened last week, is I have a Talmida who tells me that she went through a bunch of terrible incidents in her life, and she decided to up her game in tefillah and avodas Hashem to become closer to Hashem than ever before. And all these things are incredibly inspiring. And then finally, I'm telling you, you're through it. everything's going to be good. You turn the page, let's move on. And at that moment, then suddenly, boom, she gets crushed with the most terrible, terrible experience. And she says to me, Rabbi Nissel, Hashem is torturing me. Those are the words that she used. And honestly, I tended to agree with her. Now, I don't want to sound like a kofar, but I did tell her there's no question that whatever is going on in your life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is picking on you. The one thing that you can get out of this is that in your world, Hashem is very, very close. Now, I'm talking about a student that Emunah is not her problem. She struggles with why is Hashem doing things, but she's not struggling that it's all Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is central to her life. So I told her, in your case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very, very close. So, okay. But she said to me correctly, I prefer Hashem. Maybe took a step back. You know what I mean? Why do I have to go through all these things? I don't want to tell you what her story was, because and then it's possible, theoretical, to identify who that person was. So you can just use the imagination. I'll give you an example of something that happened to a Nevegal. And Nevegal decided, this was 2 or 3 years ago, to give up her non-Jewish music, which was like a big, big deal for her. And then she went home and she got herself this fancy car, and she put all her new Jewish music into her fancy, whatever it is, the thing that you have where you keep your music in your car. And then she went in shopping, and she comes out, and that thing is the only thing that's stolen. Somebody broke into the car and took that thing, which was her Jewish music playlist. So it's a silly example, but just to show you when HaKadosh Baruch Hu seems to like you're doing something for him, and then boom, he knocks you down in exactly that place where you're trying to fix things and get close to him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pushing you down. And a week ago would have said, okay, I don't like such a God. A week ago would have said, I've had enough, and I'm just going to mindlessly do whatever makes me feel good, and not care about the consequences. I don't care what's going to happen to me tomorrow. I certainly don't care what's going to happen to me after 120 years. And that is the choice that so many people make. However, the ladies in front of me are a different cut. Look at you people. You are the ones who, in the middle of your summer vacation, instead of saying, I'm going to the Caribbean, I'm going to the Mediterranean, finding myself a beach, you are listening to me. You are learning Torah because you would like to hold on to what you received in your seminary year, or if you do not go to seminary, to constantly be mechazik yourself, to keep yourself and focus on your avodas Hashem. In the summer, it's sometimes so hard. So you are the ones that have made that choice, that you want to give yourself chizuk, and therefore I am going to give you this class and just deal with it. Apologize, deal with it. And I'm going to say it one more time, that if you don't like this, so just press the mental delete. So what I'm going to do now for the next half hour, I'm going to give over my classic class on reincarnation. Some of you have heard it, and it's always good to go over it again. I think this is a healthy way of teaching it. I know there's other ways of teaching it, but I think this is a healthy way of teaching it. And then our last 15 minutes together, I want to bring it back to the world of suffering and the world of challenges that we go through. So I hope you're all sitting comfortably, except for Russi, who's driving, who needs to focus on her driving. But for everyone else, and Hadassah, okay? So but for everyone else of you, sit back and relax, and let us talk about this extraordinary, fascinating topic called Gilgulim, right? Gilgulim is the wheel that goes round, right? From the word Galgal is the wheel that goes round. So let's begin at the beginning. Do we believe in Gilgulim? So I want to share with you a story. I'm speaking to you from what my wife calls the rabbi cave, okay, my little cave over here in the back of my house. I am in Hernoth, Ruchav Parnas Arba, and next door to me is Ruchav Parnas Sheish, is 6 Parnas. On the 5th floor, some of you have been to our house, is the home of Rebbe Chana Silver and her husband, who's my best friend, Rabbi Uri Silver. On the other side of that floor is the home of Yitzchak and Michal Asuli, Assuli. He is French. She is from New Jersey. Interesting marriage, the sweetest, the most amazing couple. And for the last 25 years, we have been neighbors, and I make fun of the French and he makes fun of the English. Yeah, how are you today? I mean, he said, okay, so whatever it is, it's an ongoing joke. It's not even funny anymore. And we love each other dearly, and we share each other's simchas. And one day he comes over and says to me, Menachem, I have a story for you. So let me just start with my pathetic French accent and tell you what happened. He told me that he has a story he wants to share with me that is extraordinary. It's an unbelievable story, and it's happening to his Rebbe right now as we speak. The story is at least 10 years old by now. He grew up in Paris. I was actually just there a couple of months ago. It is a beautiful place. Ladies, put it on your bucket list. Or even better, wait till you get married and go with your husband so you can take that iconic picture without looking cheesy by the Eiffel Tower, because it's legit. It's your husband. There we go. Just do me a favor. Do not let anyone propose to you by the Eiffel Tower. It is really, really pathetic. That will be really pathetic. I'm sorry. Do not do that. Anyhow, let me get back. So Rabbi Asuli tells me that he grew up in the outskirts of Paris. Paris is a huge city and has a massive Jewish community. As far as I know, it's the biggest in Europe and one of the biggest in the world. Amazing, beautiful community, an incredible community. And in one of the areas where he grew up, it's sort of a suburb. There was what's called a gated community. A gated community means that it's a safe area for you to get in. You have to go past the gate. Once you get in there, it's a community. And in that community, there is an area which has the shul. And the shul is a complex that contained the rabbi's house and offices and a mikveh and whatever it is that they have over there. And the story goes that he says, my rabbi and his rebbitzin had a beautiful child. And this child was not particularly different from any other child, except that the child had beautiful midos, was always happy, and was very bright, and had a best friend. This child had a best friend. The child with whom this child, the best friend was, I think, a 9-year-old girl who had, who was on the spectrum. What's it called again? She had, I'm just trying to think of the word I'm looking for.
Autism.
Autism. Thank you so much. Okay, she had autism, and because I always get mixed up because my granddaughter, as you all know, has Down syndrome. It's not the same. This is regular autism, and they used to play together, running up and down the shul, and nothing else that stood out except for the following strange phenomena. For some reason or other, the rabbi and the rebbitzin and the family used to travel to Germany, I think maybe to Frankfurt. It's a couple of hours away. And when they used to cross over the border and enter a German soil, this little child used to start freaking out. It was completely and totally uncontrollable. And this was unusual for this child. It wasn't just a regular tantrum. And when the child would come back into French territory, calm down, everything is good. There's something triggering about Germany for this child. They did not think twice about what it was. And then one day, this child disappeared. Let's say the child was 3 years old. I don't remember anymore the details of the story. 3-year-old child disappears. A whole search committee, they're looking, they're frantic, they're going crazy. Eventually, they find the child in the mikveh, head down in the water. The child had jumped in and drowned himself. So it goes without saying, this was a catastrophe beyond measure. The parents are sitting shiva for their beautiful child. And on the last night of the shiva, this little boy appears to his father, the rabbi, in a dream and says the following words. He says, Papa, How are you today? Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. He says, Father, do me a favor and stop mourning for me. Stop crying for me. He says, what are you talking about? He says, you should know that I am a famous rabbi from the Middle Ages in Germany, and I was murdered al Kiddush Hashem, and I was never ever given a proper burial. I was the leader of the generation, a great halachic expert, and I died without burial. After I died, I started going up in the heavenly realms, and they allowed me to get higher and higher and higher until I reached a very high place. And they told me, if you want to go further, the only way to do it is to have a Jewish halachic burial. And I was brought down as a Gilgal into our home, right? Into our home. You are my father, Mama is my mother, and you raised me beautifully for exactly the amount of time I needed to be down here in this world. And when I received that final tikkun, I went into the water and I died b'tahara, with purity, and you gave me a proper Jewish burial. And now I'm able to reach this very high place. So everything is good. And you do not need to cry for me anymore. So Vayikatz, right? V'hinei chalom. He wakes up. What kind of a crazy dream is this? First thing he did was to do his research. Did there exist a famous German rabbi, a halakhic expert, that died without a Kiddush Hashem? And the answer is, at the back of every Gemara, there's a parish called the Mordechai, or it's really Mordechai ben Hillel. I wrote down in my scribbles, okay, because there's no way I can remember this information, from 1230 to 1298. He was a contemporary and a chaver of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Ashri. So he was burnt at the stake. It was called the Rheinfleisch pogroms, not to be confused with the Crusades. The Rheinfleisch pogroms were, there was a period of pogroms where they killed tens of thousands of Yidden, and the Mordechai was murdered together with his wife and together with his kids. A horrible story. And now he had come back to get a proper burial. And that's how the story ends. Not really. The story has little anecdotes that came afterwards. Anecdote number one is that they communicated with this autistic girl through what's called facilitation. Honestly, I don't know anything about it. Honestly, I know that my Rebbe, Ramesh Shapiro, was very much against it. He felt it was a very incorrect thing to do. But be that as it may, there's a way through computers to communicate with autistic children. And this little girl said, yeah, everyone knows that this little boy is a reincarnation of the Mordechai. She just said it straight out, and everyone was like, whoa, this is insane. Another anecdote is that the child kept on returning to the father in dreams. So around about Hanukkah time, the child goes to the father in a dream and says, I told you to stop crying for me. Why are you crying for me? The father wakes up, has no idea what he meant, because he had not even been thinking about his child. He told the story to his wife, and his wife said, yeah, he's talking about me. I didn't want to tell you this, but last night before I went to bed, I went to his room and I took out all his little cutie little clothing and I put it in a box to be given away. And last night I went to bed crying. So he was obviously referring to me. Now, I would like to make the following public service announcement. You do not have to believe the story. It's okay. We can still be friends. If you don't like the story, it's okay. It does not bother me. Whether you believe the story, honestly, you can come and ask Rabbi Asuli. He'd probably tell you that I got some of the details wrong, but for sure, the central theme of the story, I know I got right. So the story either happened or did not happen. The question is, could the story have happened? Meaning, do we, on principle, believe that this story could have happened because we believe in the concept called reincarnation, Gilgal Neshamas? Do we believe in these things? And by the way, behind me is my bookshelves. And I have, like, on the top shelf in the corner, some Kabbalah books, which one day I'm going to understand. And one of them is this 2-volume thing called Sefer HaGilgulim of the Arizal. It now comes a version for dummies that comes with commentaries and explanations. And I also have another book, which was written by a young Avrech who went through all the different Svarim. I should really just show it to you, because can't be bothered. It's a book this thick, filled with every single connection between two people in the world of Gilgulim. So it's just crazy, right? There's a lot of stuff written outside of the Arizal about Gilgulim, who's connected to who, and why, and what's the backstory, and so on and so forth. Do we believe in these things, or do we not believe in these things? So, first of all, I want to tell you what my Rebbe Rav Moshe Shapiro said. My Rebbe said, he says, look, the moment that the Arizal came along, it was 500 years ago, he wrote what he wrote. Who was the Arizal? The Arizal basically was the backbone of Klal Yisrael in the last 500 years on a deeper level. When you look at me, you don't see my backbone, it's hidden. And the Arizal, you don't have to ever open up any of his farms without your life, without realizing that you are deeply affected by him every single day. Every single lady in front of me, you fall into one of three camps. You're either what's called the so-called Litvisha Yeshiva camp, you're either from a Hasidic family, or you're from the Sephardim. And after the Arizal, the greatest in the Litvisha world was the Vilna Gaon. He writes a lot about Gilgulim. In the Hasidic world, it goes without saying, everyone, the Baal Shem Tov, and they talk about Gilgulim nonstop. We may even have time for a story, a Hasidic story about Gilgulim. And thirdly, you have the Chidah. The Chidah was a contemporary of the generation after the Gra, and he also writes freely about the on behalf of the Sephardim about the topic of Gilgulim. So my Rebbe said today it is considered mainstream hashkafa, and in his very sharp words, anyone who rejects the concept of Gilgulim, he's kaifer in the Messiah of Torah Shabbat Peh. Let me say that slowly. He's kaifer means he's rejected the Messiah, the traditions we have in how the oral law works. The oral law, Torah Shabbat Peh, has a certain dynamic. Gedolim that run Klal Yisrael, they were Talmidim of the Gedolim of the previous generation and so on. We have a Messiah. We're part of something. Every lady listening to me is my student at this point now. I can send you, and I'm happy to do so on WhatsApp, I can send you a little chart that connects me through either Rav Moshe Shapiro or my other Rav Volba, all the way back to the Gra, and from the Gra all the way back to Har Sinai. So sorry, it's about 40 names if I'm not mistaken. How cool is that? You're a part of a Messiah. The Messiah of Klal Yisrael, the last 500 years, has reincarnation as something central. So okay, so it exists. Now what? The questions that people ask me are the following is, why do we need reincarnation? What does it do for us? Classic question I get from women is, what will I look like? I don't know why. Guys don't care about this question, but ladies do. They want to know. And if Mashiach comes, eventually it's going to end up with Tchias HaMesim, with the dead coming back. That's you. So you're all going to come back. So what am I going to look like? We're going to talk about that in a few moments. And the Rav Sadi Gaon, excuse me, was it Rav Sadi Gaon or Rav Hai Gaon? Rav Sadi Gaon, he made fun of this whole question about what you're going to look like. He said it this way. I don't know why, but when I was your age, I used to love watching horror movies. I find them fun. And just to be honest with you, this visual, I think most of you are going to love this. Once upon a time, there was a man walking down the street, and a lion attacked him. And the lion ate the human being from beginning to end. Let's say the human being is called Joe, okay? Joe is now inside of this lion. So you're looking at a lion crossing over a bridge. Inside the lion is Joe. Now, the lion falls off the bridge, lands inside the water, drowns, gets pulled out to the sea, and is swallowed whole by a whale. So now you're looking at this whale, and this whale has a lion inside, which has Joe inside. Well, guess what, ladies? This whale is captured by 100 fishermen, and they feast on this whale. So 1/100th of the whale goes into each fisherman. How about this for a visual? Mashiach comes, and eventually we have Tchias HaMesim. How on earth does Joe come back? Does he come out of the lion? Does he come out of the whale? Or, this would be incredibly cool, do 100 fishermen have to vomit? And then the vomit somehow comes together and forms some kind of like a mass. And it turns into a human being. And there's Joe, right? There he is. Is that what's going to happen, ladies? So Rav Sadi Gaon says, Zayhi she'eres hatipshim. This is what's called the question of fools. Because what we're all doing is projecting from our experience now into how we picture Tchias HaMesim is supposed to be. Stay with me, and I'm going to show you what is the healthy way of understanding these things. So, question is, what do I look like? And the final question is, should I care? And I'm going to show you why you should care in a moment. But let's just go over the general questions. Do we believe in it? As I already answered that we do. What is it for? What will I look like? And why should I care? So let's go through this one by one. I already mentioned that the Arizal made this mainstream. I tell you this, I do want to mention this because it is now, we're turning it to Av, which means Rosh Chodesh Av, for me, just means it's 2 months away from Rosh Hashanah. And on Yom Kippur, we're going to read the story of Yonah. Yonah gets swallowed by a whale, just like Joe. Okay, he had a whale at the time. Sorry about that. Okay, he gets swallowed by a whale. So the Ramban famously learns up the story of Yonah and connects it to what's called Seid HaGilgul. It's connected to the wall of Gilgulim. And the Ramban talks about it in Sefer Eov. So as the saying goes, you can run, but you can't hide. Yonah tried to hide, and you come back anyhow. So the Mishnah Berurah says, do tshuva, because if you don't do tshuva, you're going to lose, because you're going to have to come back anyhow. So that's like ridiculous. The bottom line is that what I want to say to you ladies is that the idea of Gilgulim is somehow rather, the Mishnah Berurah mentions it, the Chazon Ish talks about it, he quotes the Zohar that talks about it. Everyone's talking about this topic. Why do I need to know about it? So first of all, let's start off with the Ramchal. The Ramchal is in Sefer Derech Hashem. Derech Hashem is officially not a Kabbalah Sefer. Derech Hashem was written for you and for me. Some of you who are my students in Derech Hashem. Where are you? Let me see the names out there. Where was Shani Zaed? I think I saw her somewhere. I taught her Derech Hashem. There she is. Okay. Hola, señorita. You are in Mexico? That's where you are? Okay. Okay. If anyone wants some tacos, Shani's going to happy. She'll send it to you right through the internet. There you go. Okay. Anyhow, no Mexican jokes. Fine. Let us continue. So the Ramchal in Sefer Derech Hashem, in Chelik Beis, in chapter 2, brings down that the purpose of reincarnation is a chesed. It is a kindness for you and I. What does it mean it's a chesed? He says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after you die, has many, many different ways of cleansing yourself. So just a quick reminder, your neshama and your guf, after 120 years, needs cleansing. And mainly your guf, okay? But your guf gets cleansed literally by going inside the ground. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, in through your belly and out of your snout, and does what it needs to do to fix you. But your neshama goes to the old one neshamas. And your neshama is being cramped in, right, for 120 years inside your guf. It needs to be stretched out, and some things need to be fixed. So how do you fix things? The worst case scenario, the worst case scenario, says the Ramchal, is that you don't come back after Tchias HaMesim. That doesn't happen to people like you and I. He said there's only a handful of people in all of history who are there at Har Sinai don't come back. We don't have to worry about that. Everyone else has to be fixed. So you don't want to be fixed with the great laundromat in the sky. That's one possibility. There's, especially if you have to go through the heat cycle, but there is another way, and that is that you come back and you can fix what you messed up, so that you can be go back a second time with all this stuff behind you. It goes without saying, if you're going to come back a second time, the second time you're going to be set up for success. It's going to be easier for you to fix what you need to fix. Otherwise, what's the point? But that is one possibility. The other possibility of coming back is to finish the story that you never had a chance to finish. What would be an example of that? The story I just told you. The Mordechai never had a chance to have a Jewish burial. He has to come back. And this is classic, that the Zohar in the beginning of Parshas Mishpatim talks about in Begapa Yavo, Begapa Yetze. I'm just going to summarize for you what he says. He says, what happens when somebody wants to get married? And they get married, and the two of them try and have children, but they can't have children. Do they lose out after Tchias HaMesim, that they come back without kids? Is that what is going to happen to them? So the Zohar says it depends. If they try to have children, Hashem will bring them both back. They will marry each other again. So husband and wife will get married to each other, and they'll have the kids that they never had the first time around. For me, this is like a joke thought, but I'm, Baruch Hashem, very, very blessed with 9 kids. But I have 2 friends who have 18 kids or more. So this is insane. So some of you were taught by them. If you're taught by Rabbi Schaffman or Rabbi Teller, okay, you know these people. So I joke, and a little tongue-in-cheek, that this is their second time round, so they have to have Lechem Mishnah. They have to have twice as many kids for this time round and for the previous Gilgul. Maybe yes, maybe no, no idea. But that is a possibility, that they come back and have those kids that they never had. So sometimes you come back to finish the story that you never had. Another example, I go back to Poland, and every so often I see a very level-headed, healthy, anxiety-free student of mine that the Holocaust triggers her like insane. Anything with the Holocaust, she goes crazy. So I had this theory, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I had this theory that she was one of the 1.5 million children that died, and she came back to finish her story. So there's no such thing as a baby dying in a vacuum. There's always either a previous Gilgul and they came back to fix things like the story I just told, or they will have to come back and finish the story that they never had a chance to tell. So this is incredible. You come back to finish the story that you never had a chance to tell. That is one possibility. The other possibility is that you come to fix what you messed up. The Ramchal says that this includes when, the obvious case, excuse me, is that say you stole from someone, you die without paying back. So you come back and you're in a car accident and you're at fault, and you have to pay Ruvain $1,000. So, or you have to pay Rachel $1,000. So you feel, oh my gosh, what a waste. I had to give her $1,000. No, you owed her $1,000 from your previous Gilgul. It was probably that. Then it was 1,000 rubles or whatever it was, and now you're coming back now to pay that money. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, he fixes all the accounts by bringing you both back. You crash into each other. You have to pay her, and with that, you have fixed whatever you needed to fix. That would be the classic example. But the Ramchal also says that sometimes you come back with a different situation to be able to experience what you never had a chance to experience. For example, if in your last reincarnation you had poverty, so you come back as somebody rich. Why? Because poverty and wealth have completely different sets of challenges that don't overlap. The person who's poor has to work very much on trusting that Hashem will take care of him or her. The rich person has to have a different type of emunah to realize that it's not me, it's him. Poor people have to learn what it is to mistapik b'muah, to be able to survive with the minimum. Rich people have to be able to say to themselves that I will not flaunt my wealth, I will not live on a higher standard of living than I need to in a way that is inappropriate. A person has to be at sanua, has to be modest even when you're wealthy as well, in your lifestyle. So all these things are different challenges. So you come back rich because in those days you were poor. That's why today, Baruch Hashem, overwhelmingly, Klal Yisrael are financially well off, when 100 years ago, overwhelmingly was in the other direction. The majority of Klal Yisrael were in poverty, at least in East Europe. So that would be an example. You come back to fix things as well. Another example, I'm just looking at the time. Let me see if I can. I'm going to say this story very quickly. I promised you a Hasidic story. And so let me, Abby's going to be disappointed with me. I don't tell anything Hasidic over here. So let's get a quick Hasidic story. Once upon a time, there was a holy Rebbe who was called the Apter Rav. The Apter Rav is actually buried next to the Baal Shem Tov, one of the 4 big students of Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk. And the Apter Rav, one Friday night, he's running his tish, and suddenly a stranger walks in. And no one knows who it is. And the Apter Rav looks at him and starts pointing at him and starts laughing at him until his face turns bright red. He turns around, he flees, he's gone. Next Friday night, same thing happens. Third Friday night, this happens a 3rd time in a row. He makes fun of him in public. He turns around, flees. And 2 hours later, in the local inn, the innkeeper comes running into the tish and says, Rebbe, there's a person who's been living in my hotel for the last 3 weeks. And tonight he came back from your tish and he just lay down and died. What should we do? I don't even know who this person is. So the Rebbe said, the holy Rebbe said, I know exactly who this person is. I know exactly who this person is. This person, well, obviously we wanted to know. What the backstory was, this person was with me in my previous Google. Now, the Apter Rav was a Levite. He said, once upon a time, in my previous reincarnation, I was a Levite in the Beis HaMikdash, and I was working with this man, and our job was to sing music when people would bring their sin offering. And we would sing a sad tune, and they would bring their sin offering, and after bringing the sin offering, we would switch to a happy tune. And we were trained so that no 2 Jews would get the same song. This is, by the way, why the Levim have to train for 5 years. They're not learning their instrument. They're learning how to look into the neshama for Jew and to play the music that is appropriate for that neshama. By the way, in parenthesis, this shows us once again the extraordinary power of music, which is what I spoke about when I learned with you at the beginning of this week. Okay, so what happened over here? He said, my friend, the one that died tonight, he had a terrible custom that he would continue the sad tune just a little bit longer than was necessary, just to make that Jew suffer a little bit more before he was given his redemption. Now, he did it l'shem shamayim. He wanted the guy to do proper tshuva, but we should have told him off. And we never told him off. And he had to come back, and he had to be embarrassed publicly by me because I did not protest when he publicly embarrassed that Jew in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Once again, ladies, you don't have to believe these stories. It's a Hasidic story. But here's my point. My point is that you see here an example of what it means you come back to fix things. So now we know why we come back. And now I get to a fascinating topic, which I'm now looking at the clock. I'm not going to be able to explain properly, but I'm going to do the best that I can to explain this incredible idea. Ladies, listen to me. What do you look like in Tchias HaMesim? You don't need a reincarnation class to ask that question. You could ask that question, what happens if a person dies at the age of 20? So that's cool. So I come back looking like a 20-year-old. But what happens if you die as a 95-year-old shriveled up prune? What happens if, that's the way it is. You're born a raisin and you die a prune. I don't know if you ever saw a picture of yourself when you came out of your mama's womb. but that's it. All the neighbors are saying, oh my gosh, Mazel Tov, it's a rat, whatever it was that you look like as it came out. It's one of those horrible things that dads do. They take a picture of you in a couple of minutes old, looking like that little disgusting thing. And sometimes they put your mom into that picture, and she never looks half human, half blue whale, half, it's like the poor thing. And then it's like all over the internet. But the bottom line is that that's you. Now, your body is constantly changing throughout your life. So you're born a raisin, then, you hit puberty and you go through what's called the clearasil stage, where your face is kind of like, looks like, moonscape. And finally, just round about when Hashem wants you to find a chassan, you all look great. That's like, that's perfect, okay? So you're beautiful. Ask your grandmothers, they will tell you. And then you get married, and then the downhill begins. You start having children, and you go into the general direction of prunehood. So the full cycle. So anyhow, what do you look like when you come back to life? Who are you going to look like? Not only that, you can also change your externalities. There's a thing called plastic surgery. My favorite is Michael Jackson. I don't know if you heard of him, but Michael Jackson had so much plastic surgery on every single part of his body that when he died, they didn't even bother burying him. They just put him straight into a recycling bin, and that's it. Okay, so you have, your body's constantly changing. Here's one of the songs that my sister taught me when I was growing up in London. By the way, for those who are not aware, the British are twisted, so this is why I have so many problems. This is how it goes. After the ball was over, Mary took out her false eye, put her cook leg in the corner, put up her wig to dry, put her false teeth in some water, porcelain here on the wall, and all that was left of poor Mary went to bed after the ball. Whatever, okay? I should get a round of applause from you people, but the bottom line is that, yeah, this is what happens, ladies. Every single part of you is replaceable. So what do you look like? And the answer is that another one of the books behind me is called the Toimed Devera of Rav Moshe Ker Devero. And he says that the you that you see in the mirror is not the real you. It's the temporary you. It's the you, the real you is the you that you earned. Or if you want, it's the you that you had at Har Sinai. Every single one of us has a perfect face. Now, apparently, I don't know how this is going to work. At Har Sinai, everyone recognized each other, even though everyone looked perfect, like supermodels. After Tchias HaMesim, we're all going to look perfect, like Adam and Chava before the Chet, but our unique facial being is still going to be there. Everyone's going to know it's you. But that you, just like on a certain level, it's possible there's certain things you have in common from between when you're born and when you die, so that you had in your previous incarnations as well. Get it? It's all that same you. It's what's cool. You get back what's called in Kabbalah the Gufa Elyon, the elevated body that is the real body that you deserve. Crazy stuff. Now, and I would not spend too much time worrying about what you look like, but I just show you this interesting thing. Eyes don't age, right? So the beautiful eyes that your grandmother has are the same beautiful eyes. I'm talking about past the puffiness, right? The actual glint of the eyes. That's the external physical stuff that your grandpa saw in your grandma under the chuppah. That's a little bit of what your body is going to look like at Tchias HaMesim, the real you. It has the neshama shining through your guf. Every time we do Havdalah, we remind ourselves that that our bodies are essentially beautiful when the neshama is allowed to shine it full, and that is the body that we're going to get. That is the permanent body after Tchias HaMesim, which is basically the body of all our reincarnations. Because it's not an old you. To say that your previous is somebody else is a mistake. It's you. Just like when you were 3 years old, it's the same you that you are now. You didn't suddenly change into somebody. It is the same you. So the point I'm trying to make is that every person has the exact perfect face that is theirs. Now, stay with me, because I'm finally getting like a full circle over here. Don't worry too much about how you're going to look after Tchias HaMesim, but it's going to be the perfect year. What you do need to worry about is, why is all this information important? So when I sold this class to Rav Moshe Shapiro, I spoke about Princess Chani. So I'm hoping that all of you that have Instagram, well, you should not have Instagram, but yeah, whatever it is. Okay, Hadassah, I hope you have Instagram. You should, no, okay, not anymore. But if you did have Instagram, if you know someone with Instagram, tell them to follow.
Rabbi, I never had Instagram.
Follow Chani. Hadassah, you have to switch yourself off. Okay, thank you. You should have Princess Chani. You should follow her. She has an extra chromosome, and even although when my daughter and son-in-law raise her, they raise her like a regular child, which is the way you're supposed to. But in the back of their mind, they realize that this extra chromosome is something that is coming to fix something. That is something that deep down in the recesses of the parent's mind. Another reason why reincarnation is useful is because of when, Chas v'shalom, you hear stories about children dying young. That is something else that is important to recognize. But now I get to my main point, and I'm going to try and say this quickly because I suddenly realize, uh-oh, I'm running out of time. But let me try and say this to the best of my ability. Also, by the way, before I say what I want to say, God forbid you should know about miscarriages. Miscarriages are much more often than you think. It's just that people don't talk about it. Miscarriages are your children. So you hear these people that have like 3 kids and 10 miscarriages. Oh my gosh. So Tchias HaMesim is suddenly going to realize that they're a mommy and daddy of 13 kids. Miscarriage is also a tikkun. You should know that. And the suffering of the parents is part of the tikkun of the miscarriage, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that we are now at the end of Jewish history. So I believe, and I heard this from my Rebbeim, that you can pretty much assume that we're all reincarnations. This is the last one. Okay, this is the one that's going to create Mashiach. We are doing a finishing job. We are doing a finishing job. Now I want you to picture one of those paintings that you drew when you were a little child, where you were given numbers and you had to color it in. A beautiful sunset. It had reds and blues and whites, and each incarnation you color that little piece in. And at the end, at some point, to make the painting perfect, there's certain blocks that you have to color in the color black. And you need that black so that everything else in the painting could become perfect. The point I want to make to you is that, and this is not my own mashal, this is the mashal of the Bali Musar, is sometimes in life we are coloring the black part of our personal paintings. And we need that to make the whole thing perfect. What I am adding is that sometimes you come back in a whole life story, and a big chunk of that could be that you're painting in the black from stuff from previous reincarnations. Do not make that mistake and say to me, Rabbi Nissel, why should I suffer from somebody else's mistakes? No, it's your mistake. Just like if you 5 years ago you insulted a girl and she never talks to you again, and she's going through her life hating you and has never forgiven you, you should go and find that girl and ask her for forgiveness. You should, even though you can say, well, I was a teen then, what did I know? I was an idiot in those days. No, you have to fix things. In exactly the same way, you need to, also in the medical world, something that you did to yourself, if you ingested poison 5 years ago, it's still going to have ramifications now. So your previous reincarnations, that was you. And therefore it needs to come out and needs to be fixed. The point I want to make is that every person has to be aware that what they're going through now is a stage in their life for 120 years where they have to come and focus on very specific things, and very often they're cleaning up, so to speak, the edges and the final things that need to be fixed. Some of you may have heard from me my class about ladders. In your mama's womb, you were given a ladder to climb by an angel. I normally say that, let's say, your ladder of life has 30 rungs. So you have to get to the top of that ladder. But it could be that your true ladder has a few hundred rungs. And each time you come back, you have to climb a few more of those rungs. Your ladder is the sum of all the ladders that were shown through all the pregnancies of all the different expressions of what is called you. So this is something that gives us a whole new way of understanding how these things work. So let me summarize what I came to say, because I think I'm getting near the end, and I think you have a class straight after me. But what I'm saying to you now, for some of you, I'm hoping is a tremendous nechama. You're asking yourself, why did I get these particular parents? Or why did I go get this particular physical condition? Or why did I have to go through this particular experience? And the answer is that because you're looking through the lenses of your life that you are aware of. You're not looking at through the bigger picture of your full story and everything that you have gone through and everything that you need to go through into the future. So if you would see the bigger picture, the first thing you would scream out on the top of your voice is Hatzor Tamim Pa'alo, the rock. That's Hashem, not Dwayne Johnson, right? The rock. Everything you do is perfect. Hatzor, everything about Kosh Baruch Hu. When you see the bigger picture, you realize that nothing could have possibly be better. Every single pain and every single tzad that you and I have gone through is so perfectly perfect, is so filled with chesed, that you may even say, as the Hasidim say, I wish I could have had more and had so I could fix things even faster. These are all things that are there as a gift for you and for nothing else. So yeah, what I want to share with you is that here I am, Menachem Nissel, in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, trying to solve the problems of the world. And I don't know half the time what I'm doing. I ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for help, that things should work out, but I really, really do not know. I do know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in control. I do know HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us very, very much, and he's trying to do exactly, not trying, he is doing exactly what needs to be done. And we have to hold on through this last rocky road called the final days that bring the Melech HaMashiach. And I'm hoping that you and I will together be able to greet him, B'mher V'yameinu, and we will laugh when we see how everything we went through fit in perfectly with all our past, and how everything fits in with everything else, with everyone else around us, and we'll be able to be joining in the great laughter of Oz, Yimale, Schleik Pino, as all these questions are finally answered and put to rest. And it would be zochet to see it B'mher V'yameinu. Thank you so much for the schus to teach you, and have a great